Welcome on this beautiful day to another episode of The Buzz Around Bees. So, if you saw the last episode, we opened the hives to inspect the hives to make sure the queen was doing okay and to make sure the hives in general were doing okay. The first episode was when we actually introduced the bees to the hives. So since the last episode, which was several weeks ago, the hives have not been opened. So today we're going to open the hives for a number of different reasons, which we're going to explain in a minute. Now, as I had stated last week, I was fortunate enough to have with me a gentleman from the Plymouth County Beekeepers Association who also lives in Whitman, Mr. Glen Cornell, who I had stated before has probably forgotten more about bees than I'll ever know. Glenn, nice to see you again.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for being here.
So today, Richard asked me to come over and help him with these hives here. And typically, we don't. If we went into a hive and there was no problem, we want to leave the bees alone for 3 weeks to a month, and that's exactly where we are. We found everything was in working order. The queen was doing what she was supposed to be doing. We had a good buildup of bees. So now, the second inspection here, which is a month later, we would really like to go in and make sure that the bees are still building up and that there's no pests. There's a couple pests involved here. We're going to talk about hive beetles and wax moth. And if the colony is not really strong enough, then they're going to get invaded by these. And if it becomes bad enough, then the bees will just, what they call absconding, they'll leave. The house is too dirty because these pests have taken over, and they're going to leave the hive, and you're going to end up with no bees in there. So there's a couple things that we can do to guard against these wax moth and the hive beetles. Now, one of them is, Richard had purchased these previously, and these are hive beetle traps. Now, you fill these up with oil. These are a reusable one. If they get filled with beetles, you can open up the cover and empty these out, clean them up, and reuse them. They also make a disposable one that's a little more cheaper. You just throw it away. But primarily, that's what we're going to look for, are these two predators and hive buildup. And ordinarily, if the bees are really, really healthy, they're going to take care of these on their own. But we want to make sure that we give them every aid that we can to do that. So that's our main goal today, is to get in there, make sure that there's no pests, that the queen's still laying okay. And if the buildup is strong enough, we're going to put a couple honey supers on. Typically, honey flow time, you hear a lot of beekeepers talk about honey flow. It's July, August, and maybe part of September. Now, we don't want to miss that, because when the flowers are really in bloom, the bees are going to go out there and collect that nectar. We're going to give them a little extra room to put some more on there, and hopefully we're going to get honey, and we're going to be able to sell that honey. And that's where we're at.
And let me tell you, as a beekeeper that has had these beehives out here for the last month, it is incredibly tempting to open them all the time to look at them, but it's something that you're not supposed to do. So now, we'll be back in a minute, and when we come back, we're going into the hives. So the first thing that we're going to do before we go into the hives is smoke the hives. And it's kind of a cool smoke, and what it does is it calms the bees down. And we're going to put a little up in here.
Always have your hive tool ready.
Okay.
And then we're going to give the bees just a few minutes to digest the smoke, and it has a calming effect that stops them from putting their pheromone that tells them somebody's coming into the hive. And you can see it doesn't really disrupt the bees too much. Everybody's still flying normal. And I think we're pretty much ready. That's about all it takes for them. So if you want to put this on top of those two boxes, upside down, it's a great storage place if you have nothing out to put your hive bodies on after you inspect them. So now, as we look at, I typically like to look at the front of the hive, and then look at the top of the hive, and if the bees are going around doing their work and ignoring us, that's exactly what we want. we're not here. We don't want them to know we're here. Okay, so we're going to start our inspection. Good number of bees. So again, what I try and do is smell, make sure it smells clean, healthy, and then I look down into the frames and see how many frames that the bees have propagated. So Richard, you can see here, remember I talked about this in the school now,
Right.
80%. We're not quite at 80%.
Right.
We're almost there. I see 1, 2, 3. We're almost there. We're 70%. So I'm gonna tip this box up so that the camera can just take a look and see what we're looking at here. This is what we're looking at in the top box that we added last time we were here. And you can see where the bees are propagating this, 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 and even this one. So it leaves us 3. Now, we're a little bit early on adding honey supers, but again, we don't want to miss the honey flow. So even though we're 70%, we're going to go with the honey supers. And I would recommend doing 1 honey super. So now, if we want to go through the hive frame by frame and let's just take a look and see what the bees are doing. So what I would recommend is that we take out any of the empty ones and make room for us to work. Now the reason for taking out the empties is that if you take a frame on the end, and there are times that you have to take out a frame on the end, if all 10 frames were full, is that you can roll bees. So as you pull this up, the bees get pushed off and it just makes them angry. But in a case like this where we have 3 frames that they're working on and they're not full of bees, we're going to start there. We take those 3 out and then we're just going to start our inspection with the first one. First one that has bees on it. Nice, calm, the bees are working it, they're nice and gentle, and you can see where they've got the whole center of this pretty well built out. They're building it.
The next one is quite a bit better.
Okay. And you can see on this one here where now it's a little more yellow, that's nectar. They're filling us all in with nectar now. The comb is fully built out here. Same on that side, fully built out. And we're just going to look at each and every frame.
And this one is substantially heavier.
Okay, so now this frame here, this is all brood. The queen has been up here laying eggs. It's all brood in here. There's larvae around the side. And then up in this horseshoe is where the honey is stored. And as these bees mature, they will go up and grab the honey and come down and feed them. So in a typical hive, if the bees do everything that the book says they're supposed to do, the brood frames would run right down through the middle, right here. Now you can see this is another brood frame, all brood, less honey because they've fed all these. This is almost all capped brood now. It's gone into its final stage. And as I look around, I'd look for that queen, just so we know, see if we see her. It's not imperative that we see her, as long as we see eggs. Another brood frame, all the brood here. All brood right in here. So now in my mind, I'm counting frames. So there's 3 frames both sides. And typically I like to see between 5 and 8 frames of brood this time of the year. And then I know the queen is really building up. Okay, this one's all nectar. All nectar here.
So you can see the bee in the middle with the pollen pants that just came in. It's all yellow.
Mm-hmm. So the reason for the queen, it's actually the bees that determine this, but the reason why the brood is in the middle is because that's the warmest part of the hive. Brood typically needs to be up around 98 degrees for it to mature properly. So the bees will make the comb for the queen to lay right in the middle, and it acts as a chimney between 3 or 4 down here and 3 or 4 up here. And then on the peripherals, they will put honey, and if the queen decides that she wants to lay drone, she will put those on the outside because those are expendable. Okay, now while you're doing that, I'm going to step out of the picture here and get a hive beetle trap. And oil. Okay, now we can put those last 3 frames in here. And then I'm going to tip this up one more time, and I'm going to show you this. Okay, so on a honeybee frame, this is the actual spacer. You can see how this sticks out a little bit further than the frame. This is for honeybee space. This is what Langstroth invented. Now when you put 10 frames in a 10-frame box like this, there's a little more room than the frames would propagate the whole area. One thing that you don't want to do is leave the middle open. You want it open on the ends. Otherwise, the bees will build comb from one frame into the next frame. And the reason for that is they don't like to fly. They want to walk. So if there's too much room between the frames, they will build what they call bridge comb. And when you come back to do the next inspection, you go to pull this frame out, you're going to rip all the comb off the frame beside it. So I'm going to put this up, and I'm going to show everybody this. So if you can see this space where the bees are walking right in between there, that's what you don't want. You want all of these together as tight as you can push them, so that every one of these frames are touching, and the space is on the end, and we want an even space on the end here. And they won't build the bridge comb out to the ends. Okay, now we can put this kitty corner on top of that. Do you want me to do that?
This? I'll take it.
Yep. The reason for the kitty corner is so that we don't squish any bees that are on the bottom of the frame. As I look down here, I try and look for the frame with the least amount of bees on it. It appears to be this one,
right.
And then I remove that one. So we'll make a little room here. You can see how calm these bees are. Now, what they've done with this is a different type of foundation.
Right.
And sometimes I've found I don't particularly care for this. What they'll do is this is exactly what they do is they build this out spotty. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's because of the metal strips. I'm not exactly sure what causes, but I stay away from this. So you can take that frame and just lay it horizontal. Okay, we got brood. We've got all brood here. Larvae, some larvae in here. Over the other side. And you can see, if you want to tip that up a little bit, you can see how they didn't build the comb in here. There's something that the bees don't like about this type of frame, foundation. It's not the wood part, it's the foundation that you use with the metal.
Yeah, I have some of these. I don't have a lot. Frankly, I don't even know how I got them.
Probably because somebody else was giving them away.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, now this one, you can see this one, this is a little better. No metal ends on it. They've filled it out all the way. Okay, there's a queen cell. Now, can I just take this frame?
You can do, yep.
So what I would do is if I see a queen cell, it can mean that either the queens are in trouble, the hive is too full if it's a supersedure cell, or they just be making a practice cell. So one of the things that I like to do is take and flip, and I look right inside and make sure you can get the sun down inside there, and there's nothing in there. So this is a practice cell. They're just practicing, and I'm looking in here, and I know the camera can't see this, but on a regular hive inspection, what I really, really like to see is eggs. You want to make sure that you see eggs. If you don't see the queen, you want to make sure that you saw eggs, because they're only eggs for 3 days, so we know the queen was here 3 days ago. So I'm going to put this one back down, and we're going to continue on. That's 4 frames of brood. Okay, more brood, more eggs, larvae, open larvae. It's in all stages of its life. One thing we want to make sure that when you look at the larvae, that it's nice and pearly white. If it has any diseases, it turns a toffee color or it'll turn really dark brown. They're nice and white, right?
They're nice and white.
Yep,
Is it possible
beautiful.
for you to get a shot of that right in that little opening in the middle? What he's talking about?
Nice white, pearly,
Okay.
like the people on TV with their whiteness on their teeth.
Whoop.
Okay, larvae again, and brood in all stages of its life. Some of it is emerged, some of it is still sealed. So we're up to 6 now.
Correct.
Get this side for you. Okay, there's another queen cell, and there's the queen.
Oh yeah, there's the queen.
She's right here. See her with the green dot on her? Get the attendants away from her, you can see her better. That's her little entourage that are following her around. I'm assuming there's nothing in this queen
Whoop.
cell. Let me just take this and take a look. I always like to make sure that there's nothing in these queen cells. Yeah, there's nothing in there.
Okay.
If there's something in there, there's something going on. And it's not usually too good if they're trying to replace the queen. So if we can just push these a little bit further this way. Now typically what I would do with this is put this in an empty box. I always carry an empty box with me. I should have said something to you. When I find the queen, because if we had found her up to the top, now we got 19 more frames we have to go through.
Right.
So I like to take this with the queen on it as soon as I find her and put her in another box. That way she's safeguarded away from us, and we can go through the rest of the hive without having to worry about damaging her. So we have to be a little careful. We know she's on this frame. I can still see her right down there, and we don't want to rub this frame up against that picking it up. She's the biggest bee. You could knock her right off of there. We'll just separate that. Okay, there you go. That's it.
Come on.
It's stuck down the bottom is what it is.
Yep.
Go ahead, pull. Just pull it up with your fingers.
It one's stuck.
Yeah, you know what? There's drone comb down the bottom.
Jesus.
Okay. All right, and then just tilt it in towards me, the bottom. Whoop. Okay. Okay. You're good. All right. See, so what's happened here is this frame is actually tilted a little. The wires are showing. I would normally cut those off. Maybe next time we come in here, we'll cut them off. We'll have to bring up here cutters and cut
Right.
those off, or even replace the whole frame. there's brood on it, I wouldn't replace it right now. And that's why you couldn't get off, because they're
Right.
building this
Right.
into that hole. So what happens a lot of times with bees is, Richard's not feeding these, and I don't necessarily recommend that you do feed them, but in a dearth situation, and when I talk about a dearth, what I'm talking about is that there's not enough nectar out there for the bees. What they will do is go to another frame, particularly a new frame, and steal the wax off of that to build the comb where the queen is going to lay, so that they can get the bees ramped up. And then that creates a hole. And a lot of times it destroys the frame. They can never fix it. So on this one, it's all brood again. On one side, a little bit of brood here and larvae.
Okay. Now that we found the queen and we've inspected all
I'm
those.
good with that, because
We don't-
right now we're talking 8 frames of brood.
Right.
So I'm sure that these last 2 frames are probably nectar. Close this up is I'm going to add, I talked about this in the beginning, these hive beetle traps. So now what I like to do with the tool is just take your tool and make room this way. Yep, go ahead, wedge it right down, push everything hard this way, and make room for that frame. And then we'll even out the spaces. Okay, now we'll just take this and then push a little bit back so that everything's kind of centered. Okay, so hive beetle. Now hive beetle, it's not the hive beetle itself that really hurts the hive. And they're exactly what their name says they are. They're a beetle. They're hard-shelled. They're very small. They look a little smaller than a ladybug. They're brown. I didn't see any in here, but you want to stop it before it starts, because what happens is they get into the hive and they lay their eggs typically where there's honey, open honey. And it's their offspring which turn into maggots that make the mess. And if the bees can't clean that up, it gets very smelly. It smells like red wine vinegar. That's why I said in the beginning, smell a hive. Put your nose right over there and smell it. If you've got the start of hive beetles, you'll smell them. The bees will just leave. You'll come out here, there'll be nothing in here. So what we're going to do is take just the cheapest cooking oil that you can find. Corn oil, any kind of, you want to spend the money on canola oil, you go right ahead. You want to buy olive oil, you go right ahead. They even make a product that they call it for hive beetles that you can buy in the bee magazines. I think it's a waste of your money. Okay, it's supposed to be in a tractor now. You want to fill these up about halfway. And the reason for that, no more than halfway, is because every time you do an inspection, you're going to have to take this out. If you fill it all the way to the top, you're going to spill the oil on the bees, and they will die right away. They won't survive with the oil. Now that's a little over full, so I would just pour a little bit out. It's corn oil, environmentally friendly. Okay, there it is, about halfway. Now there's a hole in the top, a couple holes in the tops, and like I said, the bees can't kill the beetle. So what they'll do is they'll chase the beetles around, and the beetles trying to get away from the bees will crawl in that little hole and fall in the oil. So what I like to do is put these in between 1 and 2 or 9 and 10. And then we're going to alternate them. So you should have one on every level. So we're going to put one in the front here, in the back, in the corner, and then one in the front here, and then the next one's going to go in this corner, and the next one's going to go in this corner. And I'm just going to let the bees kind of get out of the way here. I may have to open this up a little. There's a little bit of comb right here. And I'm just going to put this down in here. Going slowly, not trying to squish any bees. Okay, that's it, done. Now when you do your next hive inspection, you see that little tab right there? You can lift up on this, or you can stick it under here and lift it out nice and straight. We can put the next box on. Now one of the things we're putting the next box on is you can see how the bees are all around the edge, and people don't like to kill a lot of these bees or squish them. So I recommend putting the box on an angle and twisting it, or you can start down this end and slide it all the way forward, but don't take it and just plunk it. Now you can take a brush and brush them off,
Oh, I have a
but
brush.
they tend to get a little
Okay.
angry.
Like
So
this?
just lay it down lightly, that's it, and twist it. And then, so I'll help you with this, just twist it like this, and as you can see the bees getting out of the way. There we go. You have a little plastic edge on this,
Yeah.
that's what's catching. So
Okay.
what we're looking for here is brood. And you can see where the brood is in the holes. And I like to look and see if the queen has come back and laid in here. Unfortunately, the sun's gone back in, and I can't quite see down the bottom. I don't think there is. I don't think there's any eggs in here. Yeah, none. Okay, so we're gonna go on our way with this and keep going into it. Okay, so this frame is basically empty, but can I just take this?
You can.
The way I like to look at these is to get them right in the sunlight, have the sun coming over your shoulder, and then you want to look down in these, each one of these cells. Yeah, there's no eggs. Go ahead, you can pull that one. Whoop. That's all nectar. Can you just tip that up a little bit more towards me? Yeah, I don't see anything in there either. I'm not seeing anything in the cells. Let's move these a little more this way.
Is that larvae in there?
I'm going to look at this one. No. Nothing. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is I see some capped brood.
Right.
You can see it right in here, but it's real spotty, and there's nothing in any of the other cells. I don't see a queen. Oh, I have eggs here. So I have eggs here. So we have a queen. I see her. All right, so you had a replacement queen here.
Oh, really? It came in the package.
You might want to take this,
Yeah.
and if you want, we can just take a little break, and I'll go get my marking tool, and I'm going to mark this for Richard.
Okay.
So she is, she's a fast mover. What I would recommend is just hold this frame up over this, just like that. If you
Yep.
don't mind staying like that for about 2 minutes for me to get out to my truck. Don't lay it down, because she get off there and go back down in the hive, okay? Okay, so what's happened here is
Right there. I
the
see it.
original queen has been superseded. Now here's the new
Right
queen.
there. She just went in.
Right there, she just moved down and she went through and she's probably gone on the other side. So we'll give her a second to settle down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch her with this. Rich is going to hold the frame nice and still for me. Okay, flip it over. And she should have come out the middle. And we'll move some bees out of here. Because she's a newer queen and she's not fully laying all the way yet, she's a little leery of the light and a leery of us. So
what happens to
flip it one more. I'm blowing a little air on here. If she's in that hole, she's going to come out. Okay, so you can flip it over one more time.
Oops, some bees fell off.
Yeah,
Hopefully-
I don't think she would have fallen off. I'm looking. Pretty hard to see, right?
Yeah, it's difficult to find.
Okay, so give me the frame. And because she's not fully developed all the way, although I know she's made it because she's laying eggs.
Which would explain why
There was a lull. There was
lull, right?
There was
and they haven't
probably a
moved up.
30-day break in this hive. And that's why the top bots had no brood in it. There's more
Yeah, more
off.
falling off.
She wants to hide. And when they want to hide, they can hide.
So this is a really great example of what could actually happen. Is something happened to the original queen, which we found last time we were here, which also explains the delay in the top box.
The queens are usually really well adapted to hanging onto a frame. They're not usually ones that'll fall off. That's their business.
It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
It sure is.
But it's funny because we all saw her.
Once I pointed her out, right?
Right. Once you pointed her out, because it's not that easy.
Oh, there she is. Okay, I found her.
Okay.
She's right
There. I see it. Yeah.
Okay, so she's hiding. So what I'm going to do is just see if I can coax her right in here. Come on, come on. There she goes. She walked right in. Okay.
So I'm going to put this back.
Yep, put that back. Now she's in this little, it's got little holes in the end of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a painter's marker. You can buy these anywhere. This happens to be, there's no oil in it, okay? Which I find is better. Now you can buy these through the bee catalogs. They're fairly pricey. Now there's a color for every year of the queen. Okay, so this year is yellow, and you can see this has a yellow tip on it. And they go by different colors so that you know how old your queen is. Now, Will Banks, who we happen to buy our queens from, either uses green or blue. He prefers blue, and he doesn't go by the international colors. So what they recommend you do is you shake this up just like you would a spray can of paint, okay? Shake this up so that you get the paint mixed up really well. And then we're going to take this. She's in there.
It's amazing that you could do that.
We're going to take this cover off. And then what I like to do is dab this, because the first couple drops are liable to be so heavy that it will just drown her. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this up until I get her little crown, the part that I want to mark, right in one of the spaces, and I'll show you that when I get her in there. So I'm pushing with my fingers underneath here, and I'm trying to catch her with her crown. I know there's 3 or 4 bees in there, but there she is right there. And I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to go like that, and you see the yellow dot. Now we're going to give that 30 seconds to dry. If you want to pick out that frame that she was on, the one in the middle, we'll let her go, and we're going to show you how good this dot looks. Sure, I don't want her to fly off. There she is. See the yellow dot? Flip it over.
Here she is.
Nice. Okay, and I would just gingerly put that right down in there. And we're done. We don't want to mess with her anymore. We don't want to get her any too upset.
So let's recap what happened today. It was really pretty amazing. We went to inspect the hives to see if they were ready to put another super on top of them so we don't miss the honey flow. And the first hive we opened, as you saw, the top box was all built out and it was fine. We added another super and we went to the next hive. And our expert here, when we opened the hive, the top box had nothing in it, which was strange. But not to the expert, who said we have a problem, and as we went further into the hive, discovered that there was a new queen, meaning that the old queen was gone. The bees made and introduced a new queen, and Glenn, I'll let you explain it because it was simply amazing.
Okay, so the first hive that we looked at was exactly what I would have expected for this time of the year, given the weather conditions that we've had, the way things are growing. I knew that the second box on a good hive was going to be full. We had approximately 8 frames of brood, which is exactly where I would expect it to be. And 7 or 8 of the frames on the top were completely filled out. It was time to add a third box on there, so what we call a super. And we got that one super on there, and we know that hive's not going to miss the flow. That's willing to go, ready to go. We're going to keep an eye on that and add another box if we need to. Now, when we got to the second hive, right away, I know, Richard, you saw it, we popped off that top and there were 10 brand new frames like they hadn't even been touched. And immediately I knew there was a problem. So we went to the bottom box where we had seen the queen before and we knew she had been laying before. And lo and behold, almost no brood. And until I got to the 8th frame, I finally saw eggs. And that's why I say you always want to look for eggs. So once I saw the eggs, I knew that there was a queen in there. And I went searching really deep to find that queen. And she got away from us a couple times. She's I'm over in a scooter. She's a young queen. She's not fully developed, although she's mated. She wouldn't lay eggs if she wasn't mated. So again, we captured her in a little tool. I have the tool in my pocket. I like to use these on younger queens because they move so much and they can probably still fly. And if she flies away from you, the new tendency is to squeeze her more. So you're better off catching her in one of these queen marking tools, and then we put a nice yellow dot on her, which is the color for this year. So now in the future, you're going to know next year that queen is 1 year old or 2 years old, and on the 3rd year, you know it's time to replace her. And we're going to, in the future episodes here, we're going to watch her progress and make sure that she lays all right. But she really looked fine to me. Nice a queen.
It was actually pretty amazing. I never would have seen her. It's easy when they're marked to find the queen amongst 12,000, 20,000 other bees. But when they're not, it's not so easy. And once you pointed her out to me, it was obvious that was the queen. But for everybody at home to be able to see that today it's pretty amazing. And in closing, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. And we'll be back to you again soon. And Glenn, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.